Alright, so here we have our morphed face here, and we just want to add our last few bits. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to see here we have our layers, like each of these pieces in a different layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to consolidate these layers. Now it's important, a lot of times I save a copy of this so that I have an original with my layers, and then as I move on, because what I'm going to do now is going to destroy my layers and my layer mask. Alright, I'm going to select layer 2. I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my keyboard. I'm going to click layer 0, and it selects all of these layers in between. I am going to click on that little menu here. I'm going to say merge layers, and it merged my layers. I could also go to layers, and I could find merge layers in this layer mask or this layer menu here, but this is a mini version of that menu. Now you'll notice that it combined everything into one layer. The only problem is it took away all my layer masks. So I can no longer make adjustments to any of these shapes once I flattened everything out. Just make note of that, right? Alright, so the next thing you're going to do is we're going to add a little texture. So I'm going to go to my parrot here. I'm going to use one of my selecting tools again. I'm just going to use my lasso tool right now. And I'm going to lasso this skin on the face, right, just like so. And I'm going to copy it. Oops, let me make sure I'm on the right layer. There we go, always helps. Copy, and I'm going to paste it. Alright, so here it is. I'm going to bring my face back, and I'm going to drag that onto the top layer up here. Alright, I'm going to put this into place. I'm going to show my transform controls. I'm going to transform it a little bit. And again, some of this stuff is just review from our last tutorial, because here, what am I going to do? I'm going to accept my change, then I'm going to put a layer mask on it. Just go right here. Then I am going to use my black paintbrush. I'm going to adjust my paintbrush to harsh, hardness down to 0%, opacity, let's change the opacity down to 41%, and I'm going to blend this in like this. Okay, I'm not going to take a ton of time to do this, because again, this should just be review. I'm using this to sort of fade it in. Now even fading it in, let's put that, I'm going to put it in the background here. Alright, even fading this in though, it still looks really harsh, like really bright. Okay, so the first thing I can do, my first layer of defense here, is I can turn down the opacity a little bit. So here already at 68%, it looks like it fits much better into the piece of art, right? The next thing I can do is I can go here to my layer properties, this little arrow, and I have all these different properties here, like multiply. It makes it more transparent, takes out the lighter pixels, and then allows the darker pixels to stay. I could try soft light. This really softens it up there a little bit. I could try linear light. Okay, so these are all some different types of lights you might try just for your image. It just depends on what sort of a skin tone you want for your creature. I'm going to use, I guess I'll use light, and that doesn't look too bad. Okay, and again, I can use my layer mask. I can soften it up like so. Alright, so that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do here is, like for an eyeball, is I'm going to hide these for a second. I'm going to select this eyeball. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm in the right layer. I'm going to Control C. I'm going to Control V, which is copy and paste. Here's the eyeball. It's right behind my figure here, right? I'm going to use my moving tool. Here's the eyeball. It's hard to see. See, it's right there. I'm going to bring it down sort of where my eye is here. I am going to go to layer 2. I'm going to make a layer mask. I'm going to use my black brush. I'm going to paint out the eyeball here. Then I'm going to go back to layer 4, and I'm going to manipulate where that is here. I might make it a little bit smaller. Okay, use the arrow keys on my keyboard, get everything in the right place, accept my change. Alright, so that's a good way to put the eyeball in your pictures, to actually punch a hole in your image here and let the eyeball come through from underneath. It'll look a lot more natural. Okay. Now, of course, you're going to put in your background, right? So I'm going to go to the Internet Explorer here. Actually, I think I have one saved on my desktop. Let me see here. I do right here. So I'm going to right-click on this. I'm going to open it with Photoshop, like so. There she blows. I'm going to select all. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to my paste here. I'm going to paste it in the background. Here it is. I can't see it, right, because it's behind. I'm going to pull that here. I'm going to go, let's hide the eyeball. I'm going to use my transform controls. All right, again, this is sort of a review. We are going to paste in our background like so, right? All right, from here, I'm going to bring all this back. I am going to layer mask again this layer right here. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to make my brush bigger. I'm going to paint, oops, undo. Got to make sure I'm on the layer mask, right? Haste makes waste. I'm going to paint this out. Let me turn up my opacity. Turn my brush a little less fuzzy. Okay, and I'm going to bring this back. Now again, I'm going to do this in a hurry. But what you're also going to pay attention to is that sometimes the edge of my figure, to make the edge of my figure even cleaner, I can use my mask adjustments here. And some of you, we showed this to you before, and some of you I think have forgotten, but that's okay. So I've got the tutorial here. So what's going to happen is we are going to trim this out here a little bit. Now the problem is that with my mask, is that the thing that makes your picture look sort of fake is when you have this edge around the outside here. All right, we try to get close, but we can't always get super close, especially around the hair and whiskers and stuff like that. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to look at Masks. All right, Masks does, I can show my mask edge right here. I'm going to click on this first picture because it'll give me, my mask here. I'm going to hit Control H. What Control H does is it just hides that dotted line. Let's move this thing out of the way here. Okay, and here I can, my feather's way too high. Okay, I'm adjusting the edge of this. So I can contract it a little bit. I don't want to do too much so that my picture disappears. And I'm going to feather it. And I can see here's my preview. This is before and after. See the way it sort of trims it down a little bit? And I was pretty sloppy here, but if you were a little cleaner, you could probably make it a little sharper, a little harder on those edges there. So I'm going to say OK. So here's my layer mask right here, right? So now what I'm going to do is I could just start changing some colors. I can do all sorts of crazy things. I'm going to right-click on my layer mask. I'm going to add mask to selection. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say color balance. I'm going to, here's my adjustments here. I'm going to make him sort of a magenta red here, like so, right? Oops. Now in this layer mask, if I want to, I don't have to make it completely red, so I could go back to my hardness here and soften this brush up a little bit. Let's go back to my opacity. And I can just make them red in certain areas here. I can bring back some of this color if I want to. If I want to make my hair not red, I can bring back my hair. If I want to work on the beard, I just go back and I erase that layer mask. Okay, and this is just sort of where your creativity comes into play. All right, if you want to steal a couple of feathers from the previous layer here, again, I can use this, and I can steal this sort of Elvis-y head here. Right? Remember, the idea is to not use too much of the bird. Let's copy that. And let's paste it here. Right? We want it to be more, again, more human than bird. But, again, you can do some fun things with this where you can size this so that it fits properly. As properly as it can fit, I guess. Okay. Again, using my, let's accept the change. Using my layer adjustments, I can say multiply. That's not right. I can say hard light. That looks a little better. Put a layer mask on this and blend it in. Okay? When you're done, you're obviously going to go to Layer. You're going to flatten your image, and then you're going to save it as a JPEG. And then here's another example of one here. You can see just putting on some different level adjustments, some different things like that. I've darkened some areas of his face. There's my texture. Here's some zebra stripes. Again, if you want to add some things on it too, don't forget here you can search textures, so you don't necessarily have to use what is on the picture in the background, but if you find some more, like you want to put zebra textures on here and stuff like that, you can see here in this bottom corner, I just put a little zebra texture in this corner here for a shirt. All right, and that is all you have to do.